I have to confess, I'm in love with you," the gateman said one Monday afternoon, when his boss had left for work and they were left alone in the compound. This was their usual routine any time no one was at home, and they both enjoyed it. "I love you too. I have been wanting to hear those words from you for a long time, but thankfully, we are in love now," she said with a smile on her face. She was holding the gateman's hand, and they were sitting on a brown wooden bench in front of the gateman's room. But they soon moved into the gateman's room and locked the door tightly. It was not the first time they were locking themselves in the gateman's room, but the bond that day was so strong and overpowering that she suggested that they should record their intimate moment. The gateman agreed, but he wondered where she learned all the naughty things that she was teaching him. They used the gateman's phone camera to record their session, but that proved to be a deadly mistake. Biki was the most beautiful girl in Ogusi village. She was so beautiful that everyone around used her as a reference for anything good. It was not for nothing that she was named Biki, an Igbo name that means white person. Her skin shone like early morning sun, and even from afar, one could see that her body was as tender as freshly plucked tomatoes. Some people called her Tomato Joss. Biki was well-mannered too because she was properly brought up. She was very much aware of her beauty, but never did she allow that to get into her head. She was therefore a hot cake in the marriage market. Men poured into her father's compound like tap water, seeking her hand in marriage. Every man wanted to speedily pluck the ripped apple before another person eats it. But there was just one man she loved, and his name was Chima. Chima was a businessman, and he lived in Lagos. By all standards, Chima was rich. He owned fleets of cars and beautiful houses across the city. "I love him," Biki said to her parents one day when Chima came to see them. "I want to marry him," Biki said with a resolute tone. She was just 18, and her parents were scared she was too young for marriage or to even understand what love means. At that time, Chima was 45 and he was previously married, only that his wife died from breast cancer 3 years before. He already had a daughter from his late wife, Adana. For all these reasons, Biki's parents were convinced Chima would take care of her as if she was his own child, so they allowed the marriage to go on. That was 5 years ago. Chima, who is now 50, has proved to be a very good husband to Biki. He is caring, loving, and totally faithful to her. Biki had everything money can buy, and she was pampered like an egg. But there was just one problem. She has not been able to conceive since she got married to Chima 5 years ago. Biki has clocked 23, and this means she still has her youthful age by her side, but an unbearable pressure mounted from Chima's mother, who insisted she wanted grandchildren. The woman's pressure and abusive words were silently killing Biki, and even though she still looked beautiful and charming, she was dying from the inside. "I'm afraid I may collapse one day," Biki said to her friend Adaku when she went to visit her one Sunday evening. Adaku was a single mother who lived next door. "Do you know that Chima's mother is coming to visit us from the village today, and I'm afraid of that woman. In fact, she is bringing a new wife for her son. Though Chima has told me he won't accept or touch the girl, but Adaku, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Is this how my marriage will end?" Biki asked her friend with hot, painful tears in her eyes. Why are you always the cry type? Adaku asked Biki with a motherly voice. Adaku was 35 and therefore more experienced with matters of the heart. I wanted to ask you, Biki. Adaku continued after taking a bite from the apple she was eating. The sound of her mouth punctuated what she was saying. I want to ask. Apart from crying, what else have you done about your childlessness? Your mother-in-law is moving in search of a new wife for your husband. What have you done? Said Adaku. I have gone to countless hospitals and doctors keep telling me everything is okay with me. Biki said. She removed a white handkerchief from her handbag and wiped her tears. Have you tried another man? Adaku asked. The question sounded like a bombshell to Biki's ears. What? Biki wanted to be sure she heard clearly. I mean, have you slept with another man apart from Chima? Have you gone out to try another man? Adaku sounded very clear right now and was very serious with what Biki thought was a bizarre suggestion. God forbid. Biki shouted. I don't think I'm capable of such treachery. Then be ready to lose your husband and marriage then. Adaku said and then stood up and left the room. She knew she had planted a seed in Biki's heart and that it would germinate in due time. That same evening, Chima's mother arrived from the village with a new wife for her son. The young lady's name was Ngozika. By all standards, Ngozika was very charming and she was not a typical village girl. She was seductively dressed and all her curves showed. Her presence made Biki feel very intimidated and even threatened. She was deeply hurt. Matters got worse for Biki when Ngozika went straight to her matrimonial room and dropped her bag. Chima offered no resistance. In fact, he fell for Ngozika as soon as he set his eyes on her. Only a few men can resist the presence of a beautiful woman offered to them on a platter of gold. That same night, Biki moved her things out of the matrimonial room as she wasn't prepared for the shame. She was the one who hadn't borne a child after 5 years, so she felt ashamed and obligated to give way to another woman. She occupied another room downstairs. She was very lonely that night and she cried her eyes out. And then, she remembered the question Adaku, her friend, had asked her earlier in the evening. She decided to do something about it and then she paid the gateman an emergency visit that night. Biki did not want Ngozika to get pregnant before her. She wanted to prove that she was indeed fertile and a proper woman. If the gateman can make me pregnant, then so be it. Biki said as she came out of her room and quietly entered the gateman's room. She was prepared to fight and the battle has begun. Exactly 1 month after Biki started sleeping with the gateman, she missed her period. At first, she doubted it was pregnancy, but she bought a pregnancy test strip and dipped it in her urine and it came out positive. To be double sure, Biki went to the hospital and carried out a blood test and it showed that indeed, she had been put in the family way. Of course, Biki was very wise because within the period that she started sleeping with the gateman, she occasionally lured Chima, her husband, into her room and he slept with her too. That way, there was no suspicion about who was responsible for the pregnancy, at least from Chima's side. With a lot of joy in her heart, Biki presented the pregnancy test result to Chima one Sunday evening. "Are you sure about this?" Chima asked as he snatched the white envelope from Biki. He was panting like a dog that has pursued an antelope. "Just open the envelope. How can I joke about pregnancy?" Biki said with a charming laughter on her face. "God, I'm so excited. I have waited for this good news for so many years. Finally, it's here," Chima said as he tore the envelope. He nearly tore the test result out of excitement. Ngozika was present in the room when Biki broke the news of her pregnancy. In fact, Biki made sure Ngozika heard her loud and clear. "I feel on top of the world. I feel like a queen," Biki said as Chima hugged her tightly more than ever before. "God has wiped all our tears. After so many years of waiting. Oh, my God," Chima said excitedly as he went to the fridge and brought out a bottle of red wine to celebrate the moment. The scene and the whole celebration were very painful for Ngozika, so she stood up and left the room with a heavy heart. "What is wrong with me? Why did Biki get pregnant before me? She couldn't get pregnant after 5 years but got pregnant just within this month that I'm here," Ngozika asked herself as she got to the balcony where she sat down and nursed her pain. She felt so hurt that it took her several hours to stop crying. She had felt she would get pregnant the very first month of her arrival, so that Biki would be chased out completely from the house. But things are going differently. Now that Biki is pregnant, Ngozika knew that her position in Chima's house and heart was greatly under threat. "I cannot lose Chima," Ngozika said with a very resolute tone. "He is rich, and this is exactly the life I want. I will fight," she vowed. Ngozika was indeed a very smart lady. She was not entirely convinced Biki's pregnancy was true. She decided to clear her doubts. That night, after Chima had finished sleeping with her, she collected his semen and cocked it in a small white bottle and kept it in her fridge. Chima was not aware of this, as she did it very secretly. Very early the next morning, she took the bottle to the hospital laboratory and demanded for a seminal analysis. She was apprehensive as she sat in the doctor's office waiting for the result to arrive. Even though there was an air conditioner in the office, she was sweating profusely and her heart was beating very fast. Soon, the result of the analysis arrived as the lab scientist handed it over to the doctor. "What does the result say? Tell me at once," Ngozika said. Her voice was shaking as if she was drunk. "Your husband is impotent. He has a low sperm count and he can't get anyone pregnant," the doctor declared. The words fell on Ngozika's ears like sharp pieces of shrapnel. "I knew it," Ngozika shouted on top of her voice. She jumped out of her seat and snatched the test result from the doctor and disappeared from the office with the speed of light. "I knew she got pregnant outside. That which called Biki. Now that I have proof for the truth, I will show her the stuff I'm made of," she vowed as she jumped into her car and started driving home with speed. Ngozika entered Chima's compound with speed like a group of military men coming to make an arrest. The sound of her tires and brakes rang in the entire compound. "The battle line is drawn. Ngozika said as she jumped down from her car with youthful agility. She unzipped her handbag and brought out the test result and held it like a weapon as she stepped into the house. "Tell me who got you pregnant? And don't even dare lie to me because I already know the truth." Ngozika asked Biki. She was steaming like a boiling pot of water. Her face was strong and tight like a soldier on a special duty. Ngozika had confronted Biki when she was taking a breeze at the balcony. The question took Biki by surprise, but she refused to be intimidated. After all, she is the first wife and by tradition, Ngozika owed her respect. "It is your father that got me pregnant. Look at this Aquina pointing accusing fingers." Biki fires back after much calculation. "Look who is calling me Aquina. You that got pregnant by another man? And you are still under your husband's roof. I have facts and I will expose you," Ngozika said. Both women were now shouting. "What proof do you have?" Biki asked, and then Ngozika boldly gave her the semen test result. Biki unfolded the white paper and read it carefully. "So what are you going to do now that you know your husband is impotent? I suggest you pack your things and return to your father's house. Or what is your next plan?" Biki asked Ngozika. There was no atom of fear in Biki's voice, and this was a disappointment to Ngozika. "Or, are you going to walk up to Chima and tell him he is impotent? And you know you can't try that because that will be the shortest route to your father's house." Biki was not giving in to fear. Ngozika knew Biki was right. It will be a suicide mission to disgrace Chima by confronting him directly with his certificate of impotency. She may be banned from the compound. It would have been a different thing if Chima did the test himself, but she practically stole his semen to do it. Ngozika was defeated on this one. There has to be another way of tackling this, she said to herself after she stormed out of Biki's presence in shame. She started looking for another opportunity. That evening, a perfect opportunity presented itself to Ngozika, and she exploited it to the fullest. Since Ngozika arrived at Chima's house, she and Biki took turns to cook and serve the household. Whoever cooked also served the gateman and all domestic staff. That very day, it was Ngozika's turn to cook, and everyone knows that she cooks late. So around 9 p.m., Ngozika had finished cooking and was taking food to the gateman, and that was when she caught Biki sleeping with the gateman. After getting pregnant, Biki did not stop sneaking into the gateman's room because the man was actually very good at what he does. "Oh my God!" Ngozika shouted when she saw the ugly sight. They did not lock the door, and that was a great mistake. "So this is your baby daddy, Biki?" she asked with a loud voice. Biki jumped out of the bed and pleaded with her to stop shouting, but Ngozika threatened to expose them. The gateman was terrified because he knew he is as good as dead if the truth comes out. "Please don't expose us. I will do all you ask. In fact, I will be your house girl." Biki begs with hot tears in her eyes. It was a difficult situation of having your enemy catch you while stealing something sweet. Ngozika laughed out loud. "So I'm no longer Aquina?" she asked as Biki shook her head shamefully with her dress in her hands. Ngozika thought of what to do with the latest discovery. She quickly reached a conclusion. Biki, go to your room. I promise, I won't tell anyone about this. Everything is fine. Ngozika said. Biki knew she was up to something sinister, but she still obeyed. Right now, it was not in her place to question anything. Soon, Ngozika was left alone in the room with the gateman. I also want to get pregnant, and it is you who will do it for me. Ngozika tells the gateman as soon as they are alone. No, Ma. I can't do that. Do you want to live me? The gateman asked with a terrified voice. He was unable to face Ngozika as his eyes were fixed on the floor. If you can't do it, then be ready to explain to Chima tomorrow morning why you slept with Biki and her pregnancy. Ngozika threatened as she made to leave the room. No, sorry Ma, I will do it. Please don't tell Chima because he will kill me. The gateman pleaded. His voice was shaking. Very good boy. I know you are wise. Ngozika said as she entered the room again and locked it properly. She did not come out until 1 hour later. So what I'm looking for is actually in this compound? But wait, who is the father of Chima's daughter? Ngozika asked herself as she came out of the gateman's room. 2 months later, she became pregnant. Chima's daughter from his late wife had just finished her senior secondary examinations, and she was now fully home waiting for the results. Adogo, for that was her name, has grown into a very charming young girl who constantly reminded Chima of his late wife, Adana. She looks like her late mother. Chima would always tell friends whenever they made complimentary remarks about Adogo. She just turned 18 and she has been prepared to travel abroad for her university education. Her visa was ready, but she was just waiting to be admitted into Oxford University, where she applied to study accounting. In the meanwhile, Adogo had 6 months to wait, and she was using it to rest. From the tender age of 10, Adogo lived in a boarding school and only visited home during holidays, which were usually very short. The only friends she had were in school, and everyone had scattered after their graduation. At home, Adogo was always alone and lonely, and her father never allowed her to leave the compound on her own. She was always in her room pressing her phone. It was not long before Adogo started looking for who to talk to, and the most available person in the compound happens to be the gateman who never leaves his duty post. Because Biki and Ngozika had started giving the gateman huge sums of money, he had become ravishingly handsome. He was too handsome for his own good. He was 38 and he started working for Chima at the age of 20, but never has he had it this good. He was bawling. The gateman now walks around the compound with a new iPhone bought for him by Biki. He even owns an expensive techno gifted to him by Ngozika. The two women were competing on who would have the most of his attention. But there was a new kid in the block because Adogo soon came into the picture. It didn't take long before she started talking to the gateman in a friendly manner. This friendliness soon turned into affection. Soon, it grew into a strong bond such that Adogo hardly stays in her room upstairs. It soon became an obsession, and she now liked to sit all day with the gateman. I have to confess that I'm in love with you, Adogo. The gatemen said one Monday afternoon, when everyone had left for work and they were left alone in the compound. This was their usual routine any time no one was at home, and they both enjoyed it. The gateman connected more with the teenage girl than Biki and Gozika, who he thought were exploiting him. This one felt different. It was love, he thought. I love you too. I have been wanting to hear those words from you for a long time. I have been crushing on you, but thankfully, we are in love now. A doggo said with an innocent smile on her round face. She was holding the gateman's hand, and they were sitting on a brown wooden bench in front of the gateman's room. But they soon moved into the gateman's room and locked the door tightly. It was not the first time they were locking themselves in the gateman's room, but the bond that day was so strong and overpowering that a doggo suggested that they should record their intimate moment. The gateman agreed, but he wondered where an 18-year-old girl learned all the silly things she was teaching him. They used the gateman's iPhone camera to record their session, but that proved to be a deadly mistake. That evening, when he was alone, a doggo, who had gone upstairs, sent him a message on WhatsApp. My love, send that thing to me. The message read, Okay, just a minute. The gateman replied. He briefly came out from WhatsApp and located the intimate video in his gallery. He then searched Chima on WhatsApp and then tapped send. He thought he sent it to a doggo Chima. But it was the next morning, when Chima was standing on his doorstep with a loaded gun, that the gateman realized he actually sent the intimate video to Ogre Chima, not a doggo Chima. The next few hours would be crazy and deadly for everyone in Chima's compound. Everyone in the compound gathered to find out what was causing so much trouble. Chima had fired 2 warning shots in the air to scare the gateman into submission, but it happened that the man refused to be scared. He was adamant and even absent-minded as he stood holding his 2 hands on his door frames. It was early in the morning, so no one had gone out. Chima hardly slept the previous night after seeing the video of his daughter in a room with the gateman. It was truly traumatizing for him, as he almost ran mad. Biki, Ngozika and a doggo all heard the gunshots that interrupted their early morning sleep, so they scurried out of their rooms to take a look. They saw Chima pointing a gun to the gateman's head. It was a moment of horror to see the man they were all sleeping with to be at the point of death in the hands of Chima. All 3 ladies wondered if their dirty secrets with the gateman had been exposed, but they dared not ask questions, as someone was holding a gun and anything bad could happen to anyone at that point. It was safer to observe things first and to also plead. But the ladies were surprised that the gateman was not begging for his life. His face was nonchalant and even showed someone who did not care whatever happened next. He turned his face away from Chima as if to say, You are just joking, ogre. You slept with my daughter and sent me the video. Have you gone completely mad? Are you insane? Chima was shouting at the top of his husky voice, and there was fire and pain mixed in his tone. But the gateman still showed no signs of remorse, and it was as if everything Chima said fell on deaf ears. Biki and Ngozika were shocked to hear that the gateman had also slept with a doggo. They felt so ashamed of themselves after realizing they shared the gateman's bed with their stepdaughter. A doggo on her part wept bitterly when she heard what brought about the problem. She regretted everything, so she knelt before Chima to beg him to let the gateman go. She wept bitterly, holding her father's legs like a toddler, but he could not be appeased as he still pointed the weapon at the man. Meanwhile, he released another shot into the air. Ogre Chima, stop wasting the bullet. Stop this stupid act and be a man for once. You have never been a man, but today be a complete man and shoot me. Stop this your childish act. The gateman said, and he instantly shocked Biki, Ngozika and Adago with how much audacity and fearlessness he was exhibiting. You slept with a man's daughter and then sent him the video, but you refused to beg or show remorse even at gunpoint. You should be begging for your life. The three ladies said almost at the same time. Chima released a shot, yet again into the air. Everyone be quiet. Chima shouted. His voice roared like the gunshot he just released, and the ladies recoiled into their shells like snails. Ogre Chima, you cannot order me to keep quiet. It's time for me to talk. This whole thing is ending today. The truth will come out today. The gateman said. Everyone noticed how Chima behaved like a toothless bulldog who could only bark but rarely bites. He wanted to act, but it was as if something was dragging him back. A man is always careful while trying to kill a fly that perched on his scrotum. It is time for me to open up. You can beat a child, but you cannot stop him from crying, the gateman said again, as he used his left hand to push the weapon away from his head. Chima did not resist as the gateman stepped out in the open compound and sat on his brown wooden bench like a man who wants to address his household. This whole thing will end today. The secret of many years will come out, said the gateman. He had effectively taken charge of the situation and was now in control. Though Chima still had his weapon in his hand, he had been disarmed mentally by the gateman, who showed no atom of fear as he had expected. Biki and Ngozika became very scared when the gateman started speaking of opening up secrets. They both cast knowing glances at each other as if to say, "We are finished today. I have kept this for a long time, but I will open up today since it has become as if I'm the devil in this compound," said the gateman. His voice was firm and resolute, like someone who has rehearsed his script very well. Chima knew where the gateman was going, but he did not stop him from talking, so he remained calm and collected. 18 years ago, Chima hired me to get his late wife, Adana, pregnant. The gateman started. His voice was like bomb that just exploded and released shrapnels into Adago, Biki and Ngozika's ears. I'm sure you are aware that he is impotent. He did not want people to know about this, so he hired me to help make babies for him. I was to be paid N5 million per child. It was his agreement with his late wife, Adana, who also knew he is impotent. Unfortunately, I was able to give Chima only one child before Adana died. The gateman continued. Biki and Ngozika cast knowing glances at each other. And of course, Adago heard clearly what the gateman said, so she already realized she had been sleeping with her own father. She ran off into her room and locked the door tightly. So you decided to sleep with the same daughter you gave me? You pervert. Chima asked the gateman, pointing the weapon at him again. Ogre Chima, I slept with your daughter. Sorry, my daughter, as revenge. To hurt you because you refused to pay me the agreed amount till date. Instead, You kept me as your gateman and refused to allow me to go for fear of your secret coming out. You ruined my life. Look at me. I'm 38 with no wife, no family. You refused to pay me my N5 million. All I get is empty promises. For 18 years. The gateman cried as he spoke. His tears touched Biki and Ngozika. And for your information, I have also slept with Biki and Ngozika and got them pregnant. I know you know their pregnancies are not yours. But what you don't know is how I used touch and follow to lure them to my bed. Said the gateman. He started laughing in a mocking way as he looked in the direction where Biki and Ngozika stood. The two ladies were shocked beyond words because they thought they were the ones who manipulated the gateman, but here he was saying it is the other way round, and that he used charms on them. Chima could not take it anymore. It was hard being ridiculed with impotence in the presence of his wives by a fellow man. He had to do something to show his wives that he is a man, so he pulled the trigger and the bullet hit the gateman's left leg. He groaned in pain as the red fluid gushed like tap water. Let me finish before you kill me, the gateman said. He was not actually pleading as he was still laughing out loud. The laughter was to mock Chima, but it was mixed with pain induced by the gunshot wound. I'm also HIV positive. I have infected Biki, Ngozika and a doggo with it, and I'm sure you have it now, said the adamant gateman. Those were his last words as Chima pulled the trigger again and he gave up the ghost. Biki and Ngozika saw what happened, so they ran towards the compound gate in a bid to disappear. But it became too late when Chima turned and shot them as well. Una lived body go surplus. No ears will hear that I'm impotent. The shame is too much, Chima said as he ran upstairs to check on a doggo. If there was anyone he cared for, it was a doggo. He loved her passionately and always secretly wished she was his real daughter. When he got upstairs, her room was tightly locked, so he kicked it open with his leg. What greeted Chima was a doggo's unalived body. There was an empty bottle of sniper in her left hand, and in the right hand, there was a note. I'm sorry, everyone. The shame was too much for me to take. I hope I will find peace with God. To my dad, Chima, I thank you for ruining my life. I regret knowing you as a father. To the gateman, who I later realized is my real father, I thank you for making me feel loved, even if it was inappropriate for us to sleep with each other. The note read. Chima cried with a loud voice after reading a doggo's note. It was as if the tears coming out from his eyes were mixed with blood. He pointed his weapon on his head and unalived himself. Chima's unalived body lay besides that of a doggo. And that was how a whole family was wiped out in a day because of a man who wanted to cover up his shortcomings and have children through inappropriate means. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.